Hey guys, I'm excited to bring you my full review of the Roland VR1 HD. So why am I so excited about this streaming audio and video mixer? Well, it's great for YouTubers, streamers, and all kinds of content creators. But I think it has a huge potential for video podcasting. It can accept up to 2 XLR microphones and 3 HDMI video sources and switch between them automatically. That means you can create a multi-camera video podcast like Joe Rogan without the need for a separate video producer to switch camera angles. And it shows up on your PC as a webcam for recording, integration with OBS and other streaming platforms, and even integration with Skype. And don't forget to check out the links in the description below for my unboxing of the Roland VR1 HD or to buy one on Amazon. Let's start by walking you through my setup. I've got 3 cameras plugged into the switcher. Camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3. For camera 1 and 2, I'm using Sony AX53 camcorders, and for camera 3, that's an old Panasonic GH2. And that brings me to the first really cool thing about this switcher. The inputs are smart, so you don't have to worry about matching frame rates or resolutions. It does it all for you. My Sony camcorders on cameras 1 and camera 2 are 1080p HD with 59.94 frames per second, but my GH2 is 1080i at 60 frames per second. But the Roland just detects what they are and makes it all work. Sticking with video for a minute, there are 3 HDMI inputs on the back of the unit. There's also a pass-through for input 3, which is great for gamers or presenters who want to connect a console or a PC instead of a third camera, and mirror that input on a TV, monitor, or projector. There's also a main output HDMI that you could use for a confidence monitor or a projector. And then there's the monitor and menu output that I'm using to drive this monitor. It's the same as the main output, except that it displays menu overlays when you hit that button. And it stays on even when you're off air. Now on to the audio. The VR1 HD lets you connect up to 2 XLR microphones. And the jacks are actually combo jacks, so you could plug in a 1/4-inch cable instead of an XLR if you wanted. There's also an RCA stereo line input on the side, which you could use to connect a music source like your phone. There's also an RCA output as well that you could use to drive speakers. Finally, there's a headphone jack so you can monitor your audio. Audio can also be brought in on any of the HDMI inputs too, of course, and the USB 3 connection on the back sends audio and video to your PC, but also brings audio back in from your PC over the same connection. So you could bring in music and sound effects that way too. As mainly an audio guy, I've been really impressed with the features they pack into this thing. The ability to add a limiter, EQ, noise gate, and compression impressed me. Those last 2 features alone will make your content sound a lot more professional. Let's look at the control surface now. The analog faders for mic 1, mic 2, and the line input are great for balancing everyone's audio and fading music in and out. Dials control the main output volume, headphone volume, and the USB stream volume, going out over the USB cable in the back. The audio effects buttons come preloaded with a voice changer, background music, sound effects, and reverb. But these buttons can actually be set in a bunch of different ways. So you could have your intro music on one, your outro music on another, and set the other 2 to mute mics 1 and 2 respectively. The versatility here is really handy because I don't see myself ever using the voice changer. Then we have the dedicated setup area here, which makes the on-screen menus really easy to navigate. The key button over here lets you add titles and motion effects via one of the HDMI inputs or one of 2 still images stored in memory. Just be aware that this isn't for green screen. You only have the option of keying out black or white. I'm surprised the key feature isn't more versatile. Maybe this is something that could be addressed in a firmware update. The big on-air button fades the output in or out. a handy feature that lets you cut the feed instantly and know exactly when you're live. Next up, we've got the scene buttons. These are great for mixing and matching inputs. Like the audio effect buttons, these come preloaded with a few common options, but they can be reassigned however you like. So it doesn't have to match exactly what's on the labels here. Below the scene buttons are buttons for switching your main 3 HDMI inputs. The global transition is applied when you switch between inputs. You can press them again quickly to skip the transition. The VR1 HD comes preset with this really long, slow crossfade that you can see here. But you can change that in the settings. I prefer instant cuts. Like this. Now let's talk about the feature I'm most excited about, the auto switcher, which you can turn on and off anytime using this button. There are a few different modes here. Let's go through them. Auto scan switches between the 3 inputs in sequence or at random, and you can set the length of each input on screen independently. And beat sync lets you sync the camera switching to music. But it's the video follows audio setting that got me really excited. So you can set it to switch to camera 1 when you're on mic 1, camera 2 when you're on mic 2, and camera 3 when both people are talking, or when no one's talking. You can even set it to switch to a split screen when both people are talking. Pretty cool. So overall, what do I think of the Roland VR1 HD? I love it. It's got all the features I need to make professional video podcasts, and I think it'd be great for game streamers, YouTubers, music streamers, and lots of other kinds of content creators. That said, over the past week, I've noticed a few little issues that I really want you to know about, and I'm hoping some of them can be fixed in firmware down the line. First, the onboard memory seems kind of limited. You can only load 2 still images into the unit for keying or for titles and things like that. I don't think I'm going to use that feature a lot, so it's not a deal breaker for me, but it's something to keep in mind. The second thing I think you should keep in mind if you're considering buying this unit is the price. It's $1,500 US or 2,000 Canadian. I think for the features and what it gives you, there isn't really anything else in this category that can touch it, but it is a little steep. And for that price, they even don't include a USB 3 cable to plug it into your computer. I thought that was kind of cheap considering the price. Another little annoyance is that you can only set one kind of transition on the unit, and that's set globally for all transitions. So what that means in practice is that switching between inputs, if you have it set to do a quick transition like this one, your off-air light is also going to be a quick transition, snap to black. And if you set it to that slow 1-second fade or a half-a-second fade, all of your transitions are that half-second or full second, including your on-air light. Just something to look out for, but not really a deal breaker for me. Finally, the little quirk that really annoyed me about the Roland VR1 HD is the way it handles transitions from inputs to scenes. So those can only be set to either a mix fade or a black fade. You can't do an instant transition from an input like camera 1 to a split screen. Do you see that little delay when I switch between these inputs? It flashes on the screen. And that's because I have it set to black fade. So it's fading to black or in my case, fading in 0 seconds, so fading really quickly, but it's fading to black and then bringing up the two items that are in the scene. If I switch to mix fade, you'll see that when I bring up a split screen, it goes boom, boom, as opposed to both at once. So let's see that. So I'm going to go from scene 1 here to split screen. And you can see that transition happens in 2 steps. If I go to my transition settings and increase that to a half a second, you'll see it a bit more. So camera 1, split screen. Not great. And then if I go into transition and switch to black fade, you'll see that it fades to black every transition from a scene to an input. And like I said, this isn't bad. Let's go back to 0 seconds, black fade. It's not too bad, but it is flashing black on the screen in between those inputs. And that kind of bugs me. I'd rather it was like the switching between inputs. When we're not doing a scene, it's instant. But when I go to a split screen, flashes black. This is something I'm hoping they can fix in the firmware update. So that's it for my review of the VR1 HD. Couple of small issues, but overall, I love the unit. It's great value. You can check out my unboxing in the description below, as well as links to buy everything you saw in the video, including the VR1 HD. Subscribe to Pop-Up Podcasting to get podcasting tips and gear reviews in the future, and thanks for watching.